Welcome to Paranormal Almanac with your host, Kurt Sandvik. Hey, howdy, hi. That's right, I'm your host, Kurt Sandvik, and on this week's edition of Paranormal Almanac, let's talk about pancakes. But first, as always, we got shout-outs. Shout-outs going out to all the patrons. Shout-outs to Sophie Alice, your local cryptid, Flory, Naughty Innuendo, Jen, Danny Dark Cipher from Australia, hey, howdy, hi, Sarah Jane, Angie, Lisa Cervantes, Curious Hedgehog, Diana, Mr. J, George Berg, Casey the Pitbull, and very, very, very special shout out to Casey the Pitbull's family. Casey the Pitbull had puppies. It's on the Facebook fan page. If you want to go take a look at it, I posted it up on there. It is the most incredibly cute photo of a proud mama and her puppies. And one of the puppies was named Stitch, which, yeah, that was the nicest thing ever. More shout-outs. I got to do it before I start crying. Deb B, Corey, GC, Tracy, hey, howdy, hi, Newt, MacGyver on it, B Melty, Avril, Loch Ness, not a monster, Stacy, Leviathan, Stiggy, Johnny the Pommy, hey, howdy, hi, JT, oh wait, Stiggy, happy birthday, Doogie Whore, Mike G, Tracy B, Jeff, Richard, Alec, Karen, Duran, Lori, Rebecca, Ann, Stephen Scher, hey, howdy, hi, Jane Ann, Jennifer, Heather G, your friendly neighborhood skinwalker, Zuzus, what's it, Nico Sharon the Mouse, hey, howdy, hi, Andrew, Mark and Tina, Tortuga, Alabama White Thang. Oh, there we go. Andy, Virginia Mailman, Tony the Magician, Vicky, Crow, Isabel, Jen, Amber, Tracy, Sandy, Paige, Kaush, Scott, Andrea, Vanessa, If I Was the Devil. Nope. Elizabeth, Sherry, hey, howdy, hi, Art Muffin, Tim, East Clintwood, Kenneth, Alexandra, Zozo the Demon, Hayden, Cindy, Ashley, Robin, Lauren, Russell, Lauren, happy birthday, Russell, Isabel, Audra, Dorian, Cindy, Jerry, Jeff, Lawrence, the Lawrence Strawn, Veronica, Autumn, Carolyn, the Nashi, Todd, Jamie, and Elijah Hendrickson. I got to hang out with them. That was so much fun. Dan, Laura Pitts, and the one, the only Gamer Fan. With a special shout out to my buddy Zach and listener because it was his birthday. Fantastic guy. He's a magician. He's incredible. Also, as always, two special shout outs to Joe Teague and to my boy Stitch. But I also have one more special shout out. I keep getting beautiful, amazing gifts. I've got a tiki sign now that is absolutely incredible. Hi, Rum. How are you? I know. I love you too, sweetheart. And I also want to thank Scott Abramson for sending me a signed vinyl Sasquatch album. It's freaking rad. Way cool. I was so excited. He said, I got this for you when I went to see the Sasquatch concert in Pittsburgh. Unbelievable. The nicest thing ever. You guys are the best. It really does brighten my day how awesome the Paramaniacs are. So thank you so, so much. All righty. Let's get right on into this thing. Hold on. Push the button. There we go. Let's do paranormal news. Yeah, that's right. Paranormal news. It's a great one. The first story in paranormal news. No comment. I'm just going to read you the article. Court says Conjuring House deed to Ghost Hunter star is no longer valid. That's right. A deed transferring ownership of the Conjuring House to Ghost Hunter star Jason Hawes can no longer be used because the sale of the famous house, look, they said that she was not of her right mind to have signed this random contract with Jason Hawes. And, yeah, so it's not valid. There's another article that just came out today about it. Let me go to that one in Paranormal News, see if there's going to be even more information. The parties in a high-profile lawsuit agreed not to use some legal documents that could have transferred ownership of the Conjuring House to Jason Hawes. The agreement Wednesday came out of a closed-door meeting at a Rhode Island Superior Court where current homeowner Jacqueline Nunez's sister has filed a lawsuit alleging Nunez wasn't mentally competent when she signed legal documents to sell the home to Jason Hawes. On Thursday, Hawes' attorney said the agreement was reached after a notary who witnessed the documents recently indicated that she would testify under oath that she violated Rhode Island law by failing to properly witness and notarize such documents. Despite the setback, Jason Hawes says he remains acquitted to acquiring the property, which, why? Just stop. Everybody haters on me, whatever. Just stop. Jason Hawes, if you are legitimately doing this out of your own self-interest and goodwill and no ill meaning or no ill, then just stop. Everybody take a step back. Everybody wait until the dust settles and stop with the lawsuits and the court cases and I said this and she said that. It's not a good look for anybody involved. Yeah. So anyhow, next story in paranormal news. If it shows up. Here we go. UFO hunters thought this metal was alien technology, but scientists exposed the truth. A peculiar metal shard that sparked UFO enthusiast imagination has been debunked by science. That's right. Thorough analysis of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office and Oak Ridge National Laboratory scientists concluded metal was not extraterrestrial, but instead an unusual alloy made on Earth. So, womp womp. Unfortunately, this shard that everybody was saying repeatedly is 100% going to prove that, we have, wreckage of a UFO turned out to not be wreckage from a UFO. Hey, there's a new Muppet show coming. I know it's not paranormal, but, well, I guess it is. There's like weird cryptid type creatures on it. So, sure. Look, the point is, I just want to talk about the fact that there's a brand new Muppet show coming out. Let's all be good and let's all watch it so they can give us more Muppets. Because when people don't watch something and then watch it like 6 months later and went, oh, that was pretty good. Yeah, we need the Muppets. More than ever, we need the Muppets. So, new Muppet show is coming out soon. Watch it. All right, up next in paranormal news. I had to get that out there. Horror movie come to life. Cops find more than 100 skeletal remains in a Pennsylvania man's home. A Lancaster County man is facing more than 500 charges after investigators say they discovered more than 100 human skeletal remains in his house. Officers say a Tuesday night arrest of 34-year-old Jonathan Gerlach? I don't know. Guy collected human bones. Who cares? Culminated in a month-long investigation into break-ins at Mount Moriah Cemetery in Eden, where at least 26 mausoleums and vaults have been forced open since early November. Police have been looking to the string of burglaries when an investigator checked his vehicle plates and found that he had been near Eden repeatedly during the period when the burglaries occurred. Police say the break-in centered on sealed vaults and mausoleums containing older burials, which had been smashed open or had stonework damage to reach the remains inside. He was arrested and walked back to his car with a crowbar. He was arrested as he walked back towards his car with a crowbar at the 1855 cemetery, police said, and a burlap bag, which officers found the mummified remains of 2 small children, 3 skulls, and other bones. He told investigators he took about 30 sets of human remains and showed them the graves he stole from. Investigators said the arrest led to his house in Ephrata, Lancaster County, where they found well over 100 skeletal remains. Detectives walked into a horror movie come to life the other night. This is an unbelievable scene, said Tanner Rouse, the Delaware County District Attorney. Understand some of these are 200 years old, some obviously much newer. There's one with a pacemaker still attached to the body. I agree for those who are upset by this. We're going through it. We're going to try to figure out if there's, in fact, their loved ones or their child, because we have remains that we believe to be month old months-old infants among those that he collected. Ugh. Trying to scroll through to see if he says why he did it. The remains were in various states. Some were hanging, as it were. Some were pieced together. Some were skulls on a shelf. It's supposed to be a nice, quaint little town, and there you have somebody with bodies in their house. I just want to know the motive. Why would someone do that? Yeah, me too. I'm trying to find that in the article. Eden police chief called the case one of the most disturbing. It doesn't say why he did it. I'm guessing because he was insane. He's a crazy person, and there's no good reason to do that. All righty, up next in paranormal news. Oh, I already read that one. Let's skip over that one. The next one in paranormal news. Longtime Loch Ness monster, not a monster, monster hunter, turns skeptic with down-to-earth explanations for sightings. A leading Loch Ness monster, not a monster, hunter is now convinced people have been mistaken all along and that the legendary beast is no more than just waves caused by boats passing through the Scottish lake. No. Just no. Sure, some of them are. Yeah, I get that, but no. Stop it. He said the sightings are caused by ship wakes. This is according to 76-year-old Adrian Shine. He's been trying to solve the Nessie riddle for over 50 years, is the founder of the Loch Ness Project, a massive archive of research into the age-old legend. What? But he came to believe over the years that monster sightings are caused by the heavy boat traffic running through the lake, which is fueled by the cross-country Caledonian Canal that utilizes the lake for the majority of its passage. Here they develop this multi-hump form, and that's what people often see. He said there are other series of common explanations. The legend is just fanned on and on and on again. There are other phenomena too. Nessie's long-necked form is birds on a calm surface. And the water of Loch Ness is far too cold and lacking in fish to support a creature of his size. He said they were all fakes. I've had enormous fun, and it's all fake. No, dude, it's not all fake. Come on. Look, I agree with you that a lot of sightings are nothing more than waves or logs or whatever, misidentified boats, whatever, but not all of them. So up next in paranormal news, Loch Ness monster photographed by trail cam? Not a monster. A trail cam at Loch Ness snapped a series of photos showing a peculiar disturbance that may have been Nessie. Nessie enthusiast Roland Watson placed the device on a tree overlooking the western end of the iconic Scottish loch back in May. When he retrieved the camera a few months later and checked its pictures, he said 3 intriguing photos from late July caught his attention. These images, which came to light on Wednesday, show approximately a 3-foot-long hump emerging and seeming moving across the water. All righty, let's take a look at it. I've been waiting to take a look at these photos. All righty, let me click on this picture. Maybe that'll take me to these photos. There we go. Okay, again, it's not, a clear photo of a dinosaur or anything, but it's a calm photo. It's the loch is nice and calm, but in the dead center, there is a disturbance in the water. It's not a rogue wave, whatever that other idiot guy's name was. Yeah, it's neat. I will consider that something I can't explain. And finally, in paranormal news. Okay, math, not myths, inside the renewed search for Amelia Earhart.
Nearly 90 years after Amelia Earhart disappeared over the Pacific Ocean, a new search is looking to launch and locate her lost plane.
I visited the Kennebunkport home base of an exploration team that believes some new information drawn from a decades-old device could finally solve one of the world's greatest mysteries.
We're careful to document everything we're doing.
Dave Jordan's Kennebunkport office has turned into Mission HQ for his team's search for Amelia Earhart's lost plane.
The archive I've been working on over the years now amounts to 27,000 pages.
It's a journey that started back in 1997 with his company Nauticos, specializing in exploring the deep ocean.
I had recently told my team that we have been so successful at finding everything we sought on the first try that we needed to try something harder.
Since then, it's been 3 expeditions across the world.
And I do regret those words because this has been a really tough one.
They've covered an area the size of Connecticut so far, searching for Earhart's plane.
We actually built this piece of equipment.
Jordan now ready for the next expedition and believes this time it'll change history. One of the things that you've said that you have going for you on this expedition is that the technology has improved so much.
The autonomous vehicles have come to being for 3 reasons. One is battery power has improved, navigation has improved, and the ability to process and store data has improved.
That's not all.
It was very fortuitous to find something like this.
You could call it a secret weapon.
So is this the one that was found at basically like a tag sale or a garage sale?
Yep.
An old radio, same as the one on Earhart's Lockheed Electra.
And that was the last piece we needed.
Using that restored radio, they found a similar plane to Amelia's, flew it out to sea, and even brought in a boat to replicate a Coast Guard ship in the water near Amelia and navigator Fred Noonan that day back in 1937. They made precision measurements, had all they need, almost.
Except her actual voice, because that was never recorded.
But they did have the transcripts, so it could be recreated.
KHAQQ, calling Itasca. We must be on you, but cannot see you, but gas is running low.
We actually have interviews with the 8 men that were listening to her final words.
I will make noise in microphone, about 100 miles out.
You believe you know where Amelia Earhart was during one of her last transmissions at 8 a.m.
Right. So that helps a lot.
And they'll need all the help they can get.
Here's the area that we're looking.
Howland Island is less than the size of the Washington Mall in D.C. It's a speck of land 1,600 miles to the southwest of Hawaii.
Whole lot of blue.
And now they say they're armed with math, not myths, and confident that blue of the ocean is finally willing to give up its answer.
We are going to be able to look everywhere that we think it could possibly be.
Alrighty, how cool is that? I mean, finally technology is catching up to, we're going to finally have an answer to this. Just so you guys know, Howland Island and Nikamaruru, where I think she's going to be found, they're about 400 miles east. Nikamaruru is about 400 miles southeast of Howland Island. It's along the same general line of position that she was flying when she disappeared in 1937. I personally think that her plane will be found on Nikamaruru just because of all the evidence that they found back in the day. But it's smart for them to go, well, we know she was going for Howland Island. So let's use that as a point of reference, use the radio as a point of reference. Yeah, I think we might actually finally get a resolution to what happened to Amelia Earhart. All righty, that about does it for Paranormal News. Oh, wait. If you follow Paranormal Almanac on Instagram or TikTok, I'm doing a few a week of what I'm calling like this day in paranormal history, paranormal minutes, like just quick, maybe 1 to 2 minute long on this day in paranormal history. It's not going to be every day. I could not do that even if I wanted. I'll be honest. I tried to find something for today, January 10th, in paranormal history. Nothing. So if you're going to do something paranormal, today would be a great day to do it because you would be the only thing that's ever happened on January 10th in history that's paranormal. So, if you could do that, that'd be great for me. But I couldn't do one for today. I'm definitely not going to do one every day, but I do have a list, a pretty extensive list throughout the year that I'm going to be using for more and more of those. So if you guys want quick 1-minute bursts of my voice, well, TikTok is definitely the place to do it. If you don't want to do it on TikTok, totally get it. I understand. Don't get a TikTok if you don't want it. How about Instagram? Don't want to do Instagram? Again, totally get it. Understandable. YouTube, I'm throwing them up on YouTube. The Facebook fan page, I'm throwing them up on there. So there are a variety of different ways to listen to these if you want to listen to these. Anyhow, follow, like, subscribe, all that nonsense. Alrighty, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Paranormal Almanac. We are back. That's right. On this edition, I want to talk about pancakes. Yeah, you heard that right. Let's talk about pancakes. They are typically fluffy and delicious and made on earth, but not in this case. What? That's right. I'm talking about a very specific one case episode. I very rarely do an episode that is just one case because I want to get at least an hour's worth of content in, and most cases, you can do in 10, 15 minutes. But this is one case that I've wanted to do an episode about for a very long time. And I figured, well, it's time to do it. I'm talking about Joe Simonton and the UFO Pancakes, which, I got to say, is a great name for an indie band. So if you're looking for a name for your indie band, Joe Simonton and the UFO Pancakes, or Joe Simonton and the Space Pancakes, there you go. Feel free to use it. Put a thank you in the liner notes to me. I don't know. But for this one, we go back to 11 a.m. on April 18th, 1961, 4 miles west of Eagle River, Wisconsin, where 54-year-old plumber Joe Simonton was doing dishes in his rural home after breakfast. I got to pause right here to say, in a little bit, you're going to hear from Joe Simonton himself. In a little bit, if you do some research or if you go to the Facebook fan page, you're going to see the interview of 54-year-old Joe Simonton. This guy looks 75. Like, this is a rough 54-year-old. The reason I'm saying it is it just dawned on me that, I'm roughly the same age as 54-year-old Joe Simonton, and I just watched 2 of his videos before I pressed record, and my God, if you guys were to say, yeah, you guys look to be about the same age, that's it. Done. Over. Never going to hear from me again. I'm moving out into the country, and you just never talk to humans again because rough-looking 54-year-old. Anyhow, 54-year-old Joe Simonton, plumber, just after breakfast, he was doing some dishes in his house. His house is a very rural house, especially back then, when he heard, quote, something like the screech of an automobile wheels as a car goes around a sharp bend fast. He looked out the window and saw a large, shiny metal object coming straight down just like an elevator. At first I thought the roof went off my house, but then I thought, no, my roof is green and this is bright. What the heck is it? So I raced out to see what it was. And what was it? Well, UFO. I already kind of, I told you. It's a silvery craft, brighter than chrome, he said, shaped like 2 plates or bowls, one inverted over the top of the other. Had just come down to rest above the driveway to the rear of his house. That's right, not landed, but hovering. It was about 30 feet in diameter and about 12 feet tall. He was very clear that the craft never touched the ground, but seemed to hover unsupported, like just above it. And that's when he noticed a hatchway open, quote, just like the trunk of your car. He said it was completely unnoticeable. Like when it was closed, you couldn't see even the slightest hint of a line, but then it just opened up like the trunk of your car. A small person, about 5 feet tall, appeared in the hatchway. He said the person looked swarthy, like an Italian. His face was completely hairless, and he couldn't see if he had hair on his head due to the tight-fitting cap that he wore. He estimated his words, the saucer man's weight at around 120 pounds and about 5 feet tall. The saucer man motioned by tipping his head backward and making a motion as if drinking water. Like if you were holding up for a toast, like holding up a imaginary cup and then tipping it back to your mouth like, hey, you want a drink? Like if you're in a loud club or bar and you go to your friend like, hey, you want a drink? Like that kind of a hand gesture. So he does that motion. Then he handed Joe a metallic tureen or bowl with 2 side handles. He said, I looked at his eyes, and it was so penetrating, I had to look away. So he carries this bowl into his basement of his house to get him some water because that's all he had to give them to drink, and that's where his well was. That's where his pump was. He said as he filled it with water, from the pump down there. He looked at the bowl, which he described as almost like a trophy-like thing, and he looked it over looking for letterings or markings or anything, and he said there wasn't any. So he fills it with water. He returns to the UFO. As he hands the bowl to the alien, he looked in the UFO a little, and he also leaned to one side, like one hand against the UFO to kind of steady himself with his left hand. He hands the tureen up to the man who was standing right in the hatchway. Joe said when he brought the water out of the house, he says that he avoided looking the saucer man in the face until he got up close. When he looked at him, he had the same look in his eyes, a sort of penetrating look. He said he felt like the man in the saucer could see right into him, like he could read his mind. But there's more. So Joe's handing it up to him, kind of looks in the UFO a little bit more, and that's when he notices there's two more beings in the craft. All three were dressed identically in what she described as one-piece tunic with no buttons or zippers that I could see, but with a hood up over the head. It looked like black jersey material. The saucer person who had asked for the water had a white stripe running down one of his legs, which Joe said he took to be an indication of higher rank than the other two. The other two beings, he said, seemed to be chained or belted to what they were doing, with something that looked like a seatbelt or stabilizing cables. One of the beings, he said, was busily engaged at the panel or control board, while the other appeared to be cooking on something he describes as a square, grill-like thing or concern. He said there were no flames, but it seemed to be very hot. There was smoke coming from it. Joe said, I was interested in them. I made a gesture like eating, like if you put your fingers to your mouth, like, I want to eat, that kind of a thing. He said, I figured I'd get a conversation going. Nobody was saying anything. Then the man in the hatchway noted my interest, walked over and scooped some of them, the items that were on the grill, up and gave them to me. They looked somewhat like pancakes. See, we get to it. Space pancakes. He said the 4 small pancakes the saucer man offered him were hot and greasy. Don't worry, I am going to deep dive the hell out of the space pancakes later. Joe said he took a bite of one, and he says, if that was their food, God help them, because it tasted like a piece of cardboard. If that's what they lived on, no wonder they're so small. Okay, that's 1 pancake down. He took 4. That's 1 pancake down. I'm gonna deep dive the pancakes, people. Don't worry. Joe said that after handing over the pancakes to him, the saucer man placed the tips of his right hand to his forehead and immediately withdrew it. Joe said that he thought it was some kind of salute, so I gave him my salute. What am I going to do, he says. Immediately after he gave me the pancakes, he shut the hatchway, and you could not notice any of where the door was, or there had been a door there at all. You couldn't see a bit more where that hatch was than you could see a hole in my hand, basically saying it just disappeared. There was nothing there. Which is interesting because in the past, year or two, there's all these videos online of these laser precision made metal blocks or puzzles where when they're put together, you can't see a seam at all. That's exactly what Joe was talking about back in 1961. He said after the door shut, the ship began to rise. It went up about 20 feet, tipped on its side at about a 45-degree angle, then shot forth and away to the south. There was a backwash of some kind for a pine tree near the ship with a butt of about 8 or 9 inches bent completely back. As the ship shot upward at a terrific speed, the tree oscillated back and forth and finally came to a stop. It showed no damage whatsoever. The trunk and the branches were intact. He said after the UFO was out of sight, he goes, there I stood in my driveway with a handful of greasy pancakes and my mouth opening, wondering what the heck I just saw. What had happened? All righty. So that's Joe's encounter from beginning to end. Joe had a friend in Eagle River that was a member of NICAP, which is the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. Again, remember this, 1961. This friend's name was Judge Frank Carter. I'm going to do the briefest of backstory on this guy. Judge Frank Carter was obviously the local town judge and, like I said, a member of NICAP and also a local UFO enthusiast, which is why Joe wanted to get in contact with him. But Frank was also a magician, a ventriloquist, a hypnotist, And as you will learn, Frank did not trust the government. All right, so it takes Joe almost a week to get a hold of Frank. He said he called him, went down to the office again and again and again. Finally, he gets a hold of Frank late one Friday night. Joe tells his entire story to Frank and shows him the remaining pancakes, which he had saved. Frank noticed the greasiness and said the smell reminded him of the goose grease his mother greased on his chest when he was a child. The hell is that nonsense? He said the pancakes seemed rubbery. Frank reported that the pancakes were around 3 inches across and were perforated with holes about the circumference of the tip of a lead pencil. You can see photos. They're all over the place online. If you type in Joe Simonton pancake, you'll see photos of the pancakes. So Joe does press about what happened to him. Word gets out almost immediately after the UFO incident. But get this. Almost immediately after the UFO incident, Joe's chickens start dying off. Joe said not long after the event, 23 of the chickens he raised, whose eggs he sold to plumbing customers as a side business, died since his encounter with the flying saucer. He always suspected there was some connection, but obviously he didn't know how to prove it, which is a shame because I guarantee you there would have been some kind of radiation or something on those chickens. Joe also hated the publicity of this encounter. I will say, you're going to hear from Joe himself in a bit, from recordings he did because, he died a long time ago, but you'll hear from him in just a little bit. But Joe hated the attention he received. He said it cost him a number of plumbing jobs. He didn't like that he was often referred to as a chicken farmer when he only raised chickens on the side. He didn't like how the story changed by the various newspaper articles and TV interviews. Now, let me say, his story never changed, but reporters didn't get the facts right. Shocker, I know. For example, descriptions of the beings, depending where you got your news source from, what the paper or whatever, the newspapers changed the description a lot from olive-colored with long black hair. No, they weren't. Future space suits. No, they weren't. Almost like astronaut outfits. No, they weren't. Blue caps or no hats. Red stripes on the leader pants, not white. The UFO landed. A lot of them say UFO landed and the hatch came down. No, it didn't. Joe was very clear about that. The San Francisco Examiner did an article about it, and there are so many things wrong about it in this one, including the biggest one, which they said, little green men. They described what Joe saw as little green men. No, he didn't. The Sheboygan Press on, I think it was April 24th, if I remember correctly, April 24th, 1961, the Sheboygan Press said he received 3 cosmic cookies from aliens. No, he didn't. He received 4 pancakes. It got so bad with people like bugging Joe, calling him all hours of the day and night, people driving out to his house to bug him, that Joe eventually made the Joe Simonton pamphlet. In 1961, he wrote a pamphlet that he would sell for $1 to people bothering him so they could just read it all for themselves and stop asking him questions. I need to find one of these pamphlets. They still have to exist. There's replicas online, but I want to find one of like the real ones. Point is, Joe never sought this kind of attention. Locals said he was a humble, quiet guy, lived his life in Eagle River, was a good plumber, chickens, obviously nonsense, sell eggs. He was not into UFOs, was not into any of this stuff. He played Santa in town every year. He was basically just a quiet plumber, nothing more. When Joe had his UFO experience, another resident of the area, Savina Borgo, who is an insurance agent, reported seeing a UFO the exact same day as Joe. Another resident, Phyllis Lorbetsky, said that she and her 3 children also saw a UFO that day over by where Joe lived. So there were other witnesses to the UFO. There's something to this story. All right, before we get too deep into the space pancake part of it, let's hear from Joe himself. I want to play 2 different interviews. They're not very long. I'm going to play them both fully so that you can hear that Joe's story is, in my opinion, sincere and never changes. All righty, let me do this one first.
Wisconsin spins a yarn about Joe Simonton of Eagle River, Wisconsin spins a yarn about an April morning in 1961. A morning when he says he came face to face with another world.
Right here is where this flying saucer, this UFO landed. Right here about where I'm standing. And it was a big, huge thing, and I wondered what the heck it was. I was in my kitchen having a bite of lunch. And I turned around, put the dishes in the sink, and I looked out the window, and that's when I first saw this thing coming straight down, just like an elevator. And first I thought the roof went off of my house, and I thought, no, the roof is green, and this is bright. What the heck is it? So I rushed out to see what it was, and by that time there was a hatchway opening up in the top of it, just like the trunk of your car. And in there stood a little man. I say a little man, about 5 foot tall, holding up a jug or a container, and he motioned he wanted to drink. He motioned for water. So I walked up to him to get this jug, and I looked at his eyes, and they were so penetrating that I had to look away. So I went to the basement to get this water, and I thought, well, they want water, so I'll take it up to them and see what happens. And with that, I brought the water up, and he was looking at me when I first came out of the basement. But I didn't look at his face until I got right up to him. Then I looked up, and I handed the jug up with both hands, and I had that same look in his eyes, a sort of a penetrating look. And when he took the water, I balanced myself with this hand against the machine, and I stepped back a few steps. And then with that, he set the jug down, and he gave me a salute with the back of his hand, a gesture of thanks, I presume. And then, well, I gave him my salute. What am I going to do? So I noticed this little man, same size of a man, right to the right side of the hatchway, cooking these pancakes, which I have one here yet. He was frying these pancakes.
He's showing the pancake to the reporter.
And I pointed
like
to him and made a gesture like eating. I thought maybe I'd get a conversation out of him. Nobody was saying anything. But he didn't say a word. He just reached over and he got a handful of them, 4 of them, and he handed them down to me. And they were hot and greasy. And this man cooking these pancakes, it was on a square grill-like concern. I couldn't see any flame, but it seemed to be very hot. There was smoke coming from it. And if that was their food, God help them, because I took a bite of one of them, and it tasted like a piece of cardboard. And if that's what they lived on, no wonder they're small. And with that, he reached up and he closed this hatch with a heavy thud click like when it latched. And you couldn't a bit more see where that hatch was, and you could see a hole in my hand. And with that, the thing started to raise, just like it came down. Everything was timed perfect. It went up about 20 feet. It tilted at 45 degrees, straight south, and shot off. And within 2 or 3 seconds, it was out of sight. Well, there I stood in the driveway with a handful of greasy pancakes, my mouth open, wondering what the heck I saw, what had happened.
It is outside.
Oh, wait, hold on. Shut up. Hold on. All right, so now it cuts to a guy in looks like an Air Force uniform who's going to talk in just a second. I want to make sure that you guys are very clear on who's about to talk next.
What had happened?
It is outside the realm of the Air Force to pass judgment on Mr. Simonton's case. However, the pancakes that he turned over to the Air Force were turned over to the Food and Drug people, and they were analyzed as pure buckwheat pancakes.
Pure buckwheat pancakes. All right, I got another really quick interview with Joe Simonton, if it plays.
Joe Simonton lives more than 1,000 miles north of Zamora, way up in Wisconsin. He's the animal lover, ex-professional boxer and deputy sheriff, who had the pancakes from the little men in the flying saucer, which landed right here in his driveway.
Phenomenal voice. He's the little man who lived in Wisconsin and had a UFO encounter. What a great voice. All right, here we go.
It was right about that black spot right there.
Right here?
Yeah. and there were 3 men in there. One was making conversations by signs to me. Nobody spoke a word. And one was cooking these pancakes, and one was sitting at a control panel. As I walked over to this thing, this man that was looking at me, he held up a big jug. I call it a jug because it was a water container. It looked like a trophy of some kind. And he motioned that he wanted to drink. That's how I knew. Nobody spoke a word, see? So I walked over to the machine, reached up and got this thing. As he handed it down to me, I turned around and I went to the basement to get water, because water is all I could give him. And when I had my back turned to them, I had goose pimples about a ½ inch high. I don't know why. I just felt that way. You know, turning my back on that.
Were you scared?
No, I wasn't scared. I don't scare easy, see? I am a deputy sheriff, and I live right, and I don't get scared. I don't, nothing to be scared of.
So you got the water?
I got the water. When I went down in the basement, I took this thing and I looked it all over to see if there's any kind of a name, a scrolling, a number, anything. I was fixed with a pencil and paper, which I always carry in my pocket, so I could take it down as it was, and there wasn't a thing on it. So I filled it with water, brought it back up, and I handed it up to him. And as I handed it up to him, he reached down and took it, and I balanced myself with this hand, this sort of like that, against the machine and stepped back. It's only natural, not that I wanted to touch it. And as I stepped back, I looked up in the hatchway, and here this man was cooking these pancakes, and I didn't know what he was doing. So I pointed to him, and I made a gesture, like eating, see? And this man that took the water, he looked down at me, and he reached over and he got a handful of these pancakes, and he handed them down to me. They happened to be 4. And they were so hot and greasy, I could hardly hold to them. And from that time, he reached up and he got a hold of the hatch. He closed it with a heavy thud, click. And when he closed that, you couldn't a bit more see where that was than you could see a hole in my hand here. It was just that perfect. And with that, they started to raise. They started to raise and raise up about 20 feet high, about the top of this tree. And from there, it was a terrible release of air, just like a, like that, you know. And they took off straight south on a 45-degree angle up, see. And I would say in 3 seconds, that's an awful short time, but it was a short time that it took them to disappear, and they were gone. Now, they really traveled fast. And there I stood, right here in my driveway, with a handful of hot, greasy pancakes, looking in that direction and seeing nothing, and nothing here to show where it landed. This is the little pancake that I have left, and it's got holes clear through it. I'm going to turn it around so you can see the whole thing. And it's just as thick as it now as it was when I got it. And that's what I got from the flying saucer men. I got 4 of them, and that's the only one I have left, and that's for my own security. I wouldn't take no money, nothing for this little pancake.
Do you think Joe Simonton is lying? I don't, and the United States Air Force took him seriously enough to analyze one of his pancakes.
Oh, there we go. And it's done. Do you think he's lying? I don't. Something out of Willy Wonka. All righty, now that you've heard from Joe, let's get to what happened to the alien space UFO pancakes. All right, so Joe ate one. So 1 down. That's quick. It's easy. Joe says it. We know it. Joe ate one. Tasted like cardboard. But what about the other ones? Joe gave crumbs to journalists right after it happened, and a lot of journalists mentioned the fact that Joe gave him a small piece of the, broke a little piece off, gave him pieces of the pancake. No idea what happened to those crumbs, but there's a chance those are still out there. If someone gives you a piece of a space pancake, you're going to keep it, right? You have to keep a small piece of space pancake. So number 2, pancake number 2. Joe gives pancake number 2 to Judge Frank Carter. All right, so Joe gives him one of the pancakes because Frank says, hey, we got to get these pancakes analyzed. I have NICAP connections. Let's do this. So Judge Carter gave the pancake to UFO investigator Major Donald Kehoe of NICAP for analysis. Here's where it gets fuzzy. NICAP told reporters later on that the pancake had been returned without analysis. Frank Carter and Joe both claim in June of 1961, no, they never got it back. There is some correspondence online from around that time about the pancakes, and it seems like Kehoe and his people, or just NICAP in general, did not like Judge Carter and was basically like, this guy's a freaking idiot. Let's tell him to F off. Who gives a crap? He's sending us pancakes. This guy's a moron. That kind of stuff. But it does seem, though, that the pancake was analyzed. Like I said in that first video, there's a guy in an Air Force uniform who says, it is outside the realm of the Air Force to pass judgment on Mr. Simonton's case. The pancakes were analyzed by Food and Drugs people and found to be pure buckwheat. So it was analyzed, but the pancake Frank sent into NICAP was not sent back. So no idea what happened to that one. 2 down. Pancake 3. And here's where it gets fun. Space Pancake 3. We finally get to the legend J. Allen Hynek himself. That's right, the man from Project Blue Book. He actually gets a hold of one. How? Well, Major Robert Friend got a call from Judge Frank Carter, who told him about the pancakes and that he had sent one to NICAP. Major Friend, knowing that NICAP likes to be very vocal about UFOs and the government, didn't like that. So he sent Hynek and 2 students to Wisconsin to investigate. They interviewed Joe Simonton. They said that they noticed broken branches, but Joe was like, no, that's unrelated. That's from the snow. Joe kept to the story that you heard twice just now, told him it exactly how he always told it. While Hynek is talking to Joe, he sends a student over to Judge Carter's house to talk to him, but Judge Carter wouldn't talk to the student, fearing he was like a government agent, like Men in Black type stuff. That's how paranoid of the government Frank Carter was. But get this. Joe was also hesitant to talk to J. Allen Hynek because a bunch of people warned him the government would come to get him because of what he saw. But apparently, after talking to J. Allen Hynek for a little while, Joe Simonton trusted him enough, and J. Allen Hynek left with a pancake. This pancake, we know what happened to it. It ends up in the Air Force, with the Air Force, and is in the National Air Force Museum at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Where the Roswell aliens were sent to back in the day. I need to see this pancake. It was actually on display for a while, but has since been taken down about 10, 15-ish years ago. But other paranormal people have talked to the archives at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base National Air Force Museum. They talked to the archives. They've received recently enough a cell phone photo of the pancake. So it still exists. It's still somewhere in the archives. There is a chance I will be able to see a space pancake, or you will be able to see a space pancake. It still exists. It's been broken a couple of times, but it seems mostly all there. That leads us to Pancake 4. The final pancake, as I like to call it. It's known that Joe Simonton kept one. He talked about it throughout the years. You heard about him in that video. You heard him say there's no amount of money that he would give it up. He would actually take it out to show people. He kept it in either a mason jar or a clear acrylic box with some paper stuffing in it. He even showed it to a journalist. It's said by journalists he let people take a little piece to eat every now and then. And we know this part is true because in 1995, Harold Bud Meyer wrote an article titled, "Joe and I Ate UFO Pancakes." In it, he says, During my interview, Joe gave me a part of one, and yeah, it tastes like cardboard. So where did this pancake go when Joe died? I know that Joe's estate went up for sale. His house was actually sold to a local journalist that knew him. So the best guess is that pancake is still in Joe's house. If anyone, and I mean anyone, knows where this pancake went, let me know. Email me, paranormalalmanac@gmail.com. Find me on social media, whatever you got to do. I want to get my hands on this pancake. The one in the archives, I want to see it. I don't think I'm ever going to get my hands on it. This pancake, there is a chance that someone would be willing to part with this pancake. And it should go to someone who will appreciate it and not go into some stupid douchebags museum in Vegas. So please, if you know what happened to this pancake, if you're local to that area, if you might possibly know who bought Joe's house. I know it was a journalist. I didn't want to delve too deep into it. I could easily find on Google Joe's address and probably figure it out. And I might still go down that route to try and contact the person who bought Joe's house. But I need to get a hold of this pancake. I need a space pancake. And I will. I'll tell you right now. I will take this tiniest little piece off of it, and I'm going to eat a space pancake. You give me a chance to eat a UFO pancake, I'm going to take that chance. But yeah, how crazy cool is this story? Like I said, Joe seems insanely sincere. Not insanely, that's a bad choice of words. He seems incredibly sincere. His story had never changed. Throughout the years, his story never altered, never changed one bit. He did not like publicity. He did not get rich off of this story. It seems like a genuine, very odd, but genuine UFO experience. And there seems to be evidence that was given to Joe Simonton. What do you guys think? You think Joe is sincere? You think he actually has a space pancake? Would you take a bite of the space pancake, like a little tiny piece, even though it's from 1961? I would. I don't care. I would definitely do it. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is legit? Have you heard this story before? Hopefully, even if you've heard this story before, you heard something new, because like I said, I've been wanting to do this story for so long. I really wanted to deep dive this one and do it the justice that Joe Simonton deserved. So there you go. There's the Joe Simonton UFO or space pancake story. Once again, I'm your host, Kurt Sandvik, and this has been another edition of Paranormal Almanac. Sips that the